All right, so that was Jamal, aka Superior, and his podcast is Power to the People podcast at Power to the Pod. So he seems like a chill guy, and I definitely am looking forward to like having more conversations with him and hopefully collaborating on some more stuff.
Hey, how you doing?
Good, yeah, I'm happy that we can actually hop on. I think we have about like 150 people watching right now. So, do you want to just introduce yourself, your channel, and then maybe like a bit of background about yourself?
Yeah, my name is Jerome, aka Superior. I run a podcast, Power to the People podcast, for about 2 years now. I'm a democratic socialist. I am 37 years old, Black, African American, and pretty upset right now. So, like we were kind of talking in the Discord, um, kind of about like those who didn't vote and kind of what we're seeing happening to a lot of Hispanic families today. It's kind of
Yeah.
upsetting. So that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Yeah. So, what have the kind of the conversations that you've been having in your Discord been? Because I know that you have conversations like pretty regularly. Have you been having people coming in and being like, "Nah, I'm fine not voting. Like, it's not actually an issue, or you're blowing it out of proportion"?
Yeah, and it's kind of like a evolution in my own perspective of it. Because like I told you before, I was kind of in that mindset, like, if you don't vote, then I guess that's your choice, and yada yada, that same, stuff that people want to hear. But now, like with a few individuals in my Discord, some of them are anarchists, so they're kind of a little bit more extreme on
Yeah.
some areas. Just kind of having the conversation, especially during the election and after, kind of like the effects of people not voting. And trying to wrestle with some of the used to be logical reasons, but after what I'm dealing with today, I honestly don't see a logical reason for not voting, knowing what was the alternative. Knowing that this person has been saying crazy things, all these threats that he wanted to do on day one, we seen this coming for 4 years, and people thought it was a joke. People literally wanted to f around and find out, and we're finding out now. So now that brings a whole new perspective to me on voting.
Yeah, and what were your like when would you say that your perspective changed where it's like, oh yeah, it doesn't really matter who wins to holy shit, Donald Trump is actually kind of unhinged and I got to vote for him. Like even if my vote might not matter on a grand scale, I still feel myself that I got to vote and I have to encourage other people to vote. Like have you ever considered voting third party and kind of like what has your voting history looked like in the past?
So I live in Colorado, so it's a pretty solid blue state. At first, like in like my political channel, like you can kind of see my perspective kind of change throughout my videos. Like you can kind of track it. At first I was kind of like both parties are kind of trash, so I kind of understand why people don't want to vote. I kind of get that. But then kind of seeing what happened on January 6th was kind of one of those like, oh, this is a real thing. Like people are really taking this to a whole nother level outside of just voting. Okay, that was one of them. And then I guess kind of like when it got closer towards election, probably like a year out, just kind of the rhetoric that Trump was kind of going with a lot of the extreme. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. That started to kind of pick up, and I was like, oh, well, both parties are not the same because he's threatening to do X, Y, and Z. And I'm not really hearing that from Democrats. So both parties are not the same at that point. Of course, after the election, it's like, oh yeah, like now it's really no going back. So now I'm like, oh, voting does matter, and I can't give excuses to people who don't want to vote, especially if you live in these swing states. That's a
Yeah.
very important
And
job that you have.
And even if you don't live in a swing state, like I live in Minnesota, and in Minnesota, the House and Senate are evenly split 50-50. There's, I think, like 33 Democratic senators, state senators, and 33 Republican state senators, and one state legislator won by 14 votes. And it's like, especially on the local scale, one vote can have a huge impact, and one person taking initiative and getting people to actually go out and vote can also have a huge impact. We have one chatter that says, I don't know if you can read my chat, but my mom voted for Trump and she still doesn't believe he's going to actually do the things he's been talking about doing / now actually doing. It's delusional. So yeah, I think that a lot of people that voted for Trump are kind of in that same boat. Is that kind of the vibe that you're getting from people that you've been talking to?
Yeah, I don't have the chat open. I don't understand why people don't take people for their word. Like he's been saying this same thing for 4 years when he tried to overtake the election. Like he's been on this since day one. So I don't know why people would still want to like give him a chance to do something like this. Like even
Right.
if he enacted half the crazy things he wanted to do, that's still half too much. So, and we're seeing that today. Like, some of these ICE raids just literally taking people out of their house, picking them up from work. You know what I'm saying? Like these are people that are being counted on from their family. If that was to happen to me and my family, and I was to have gotten picked up, like that would destroy my family, like
Right.
literally destroy it. I can't imagine being someone, especially in these swing states, not voting and being okay with that. Like I'm literally to the point of saying, like, this is your fault by every stretch of the imagination. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Like
Yeah, it's
you
hard
hold
to say.
responsibility.
It's really hard to say because on the one hand, it's like Donald Trump was threatening to do pretty awful things. Well, like his rhetoric was to do awful things, and so many people, even people that so many people didn't believe him. Like I think there's a good amount of people that voted for Kamala Harris that actually didn't believe that Donald Trump would get into office and rescind civil rights legislation from like the 1960s. Then there's the people that didn't vote for either candidate and they're like, nothing changes either way. And those people, I think, are uh, they obviously are misinformed, is the most kindest way of putting it. And I really do think that a lot of the blame goes on to the Democrats too for kind of their lack of having a clear message of how bad Donald Trump is going to be and how they can actually improve people's lives. Like okay, let's just think about it. Donald Trump is talking about how immigrants are ruining this country and he's going to do the biggest mass deportation of that the United States and the world has ever seen, right? That's going to cause a lot of violence, cause a lot of people to die. But how did the Democrats respond to that? The Democrats responded by saying, "Yeah, the border is completely messed up, but if you vote for me, I'm going to secure the border." The median voter is extremely stupid, and I just think that you kind of have to play the game of politics knowing that.
So I I I I guess I kind of agree, just like with the overall premise of your statement. But once again, I can only blame ignorance like so much. You know what I'm saying? Like if you're young and you're not really aware of politics and fresh out of high school, you may not, okay, I kind of get it. But like at some point, you are responsible for your insights of politics.
Yeah, for
Like
sure.
Harris didn't teach me what her policies in the Democratic Party, what they stand for. I had to look this up. I understand the messaging from the Democratic Party is important. And trust me, like if I had to give it like, a pie graph, I would say 40% is on the blame of the Democratic Party.
Hmm.
But most of it is on the voters because we have a responsibility to inform ourselves. You still have to do like your due diligence and look up some information. Look up what Trump has done during his first presidency, his first term, and say, oh, okay, he was pretty unhinged. That falls on us to understand that.
I'll just
Go ahead.
interject and say, like, you're completely right. I honestly think the type of voter that is the least informed are the types of voters that say it doesn't matter which party gets into office, everything's going to be the same. I think they are the least informed, and I think that's kind of the voter that you're describing, where they don't know that Donald Trump has stacked the courts and that the courts are actually handing down decisions that affect everybody's livelihoods.
Um, I will say I need to speak to the Democratic voters that didn't vote for Harris. That's where my problem is people who normally would vote Democrat, but they didn't, and I'm trying to find a justifiable reason why you didn't vote, and was it worth it for what we're dealing with today?
Yeah,
That's my dilemma.
it did seem like there's a drop off in Democratic voters, and I guess the one thing that I would say is like, you're totally right. When we're talking to someone and we want to have a well informed conversation about politics, it is incumbent on that person to like educate themselves on the politics. But the one issue is, I think that we need to be talking about two different conversations. I think that there is a conversation to be had where we talk to someone on like a first person basis, but then the political conversation on like a national scale or a nationwide scale, where it's literally trying to win a presidential election, that conversation has to be completely different. I really think you need to dumb down your message as much as possible, both for political candidates and for people that are like doing propaganda for their candidates. Like, I would consider you and me both doing propaganda. Like Donald Trump, build the wall. That's an iconic propagandistic saying that he has. And we just really haven't had anything like that for the Democrats. Like, we just really haven't had that kind of brainworm that the Democrats give a vision of that people can get behind. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think that's like a big part of why Kamala Harris lost.
I mean, I kind of understand that, and I mean, it was a little of that. Well, a lot of that when Bernie Sanders was attempting to run, and kind of got snuffed out by the Democratic Party. So I mean, we kind of had our opportunity with that. I just feel like maybe more of the liberal Democrats don't know how to do that, but like a AOC or
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
Ilhan Omar or the progressive side of the Democratic Party, they know how to do that.
Yeah.
They know how to
100%. I
connect
agree.
with. I don't really, and maybe this is just me. Like I don't know. I'm kind of weird, but I don't care about my politicians connecting with me on a personal level. Like I'm not trying to build a friendship with these individuals, which some of them I would like to be friends with, but most of them it's just transactional to me. I just need you to get into that office, create policies that's going to benefit the majority of those who need it.
Yeah.
Like I don't care if Harris is a robot. I don't care if she doesn't know how to talk in interviews.
Right. I don't
That a
care if
lot of
Biden is a
Democrats,
corpse.
yeah, like I just need good policies. And Biden, for the record, actually did some pretty decent policies. So, that's a whole nother conversation. But like, I don't care about what a lot of Democrat voters were complaining about Harris. Like, those are kind of pointless conversations to have when we literally, as we can see today, democracy and people's lives are being destroyed. And people were basing their votes on, is she relatable? Or she go to Joe Rogan or whatever stupid conversation people were having. Is like that doesn't compare to what we're dealing with today. We needed to make a strategic vote and not a emotional one,
Hmm.
and now I hope those emotions are well worth what millions of people are going to be going through these next 4 years.
I 100% agree. It's like people mostly vote off of emotions. And it's an extremely stupid way of voting. And I think you kind of touched on that too, where people are unwilling to do any kind of research whatsoever into the candidates that they're voting for, and they vote off of vibes, they vote off of emotions. Um, One thing that I've been kind of looking into, though, is how it's not really an accident that Americans are extremely stupid. Like, our education system has been consistently undermined by Republicans, like promoting private schools. Republicans have also just been like undermining news programs. Like, I think it's pretty fair to say the impact that Fox News has had on kind of the media landscape has been completely devastating. It has pulled a lot of CNN and MSNBC over to the right more. It just has. So it's kind of funny, though. It's like funny and sad at the same time, where yes, Americans are extremely stupid and they vote extremely stupidly, but that's by design.
Yeah. And honestly, I don't think it took that long to do that either. And like you said, like undermining any kind of news. Like when Trump walked in, like if it was unfavorable to your argument, you would just say it's fake news. So then no one knows how to properly fact check information. You know, you're not going to go out your way to, spend a couple of hours to look up some information, so like it feels like it didn't take long to do that. And then just with people kind of don't really have the energy because I know a lot of these people, they're working 40, 50 hours a week. So they don't have the time like myself to spend all day looking up information and reading
Mm-hmm.
articles. Like it feels like people's standards for who they want to vote for is kind of not stacked how it needs to be. You know what I'm saying? Like if that makes sense, like why people didn't vote for Harris
Yeah.
compared to what was the alternative, I still am struggling to understand.
Well, it's like,
You know,
think about what Donald Trump really highlights, right? It seems almost harmless him getting elected, where he talks about trans people and he'll talk about immigrants, but he's not going to deport the bad immigrants. But he's talking about how we're going to deport all of the immigrants, we're going to have tariffs, we're going to get rid of trans people, and then the world's going to be a better place. Most people don't know immigrants, they don't know trans people, and they don't know what a tariff is. It doesn't affect them at all. So why would they put in the time to actually investigate into what those things are? It's not like Donald Trump saying, "Yeah, we're going to make all imports cost twice as much and it's going to have this inflationary effect and now your milk and eggs and your cars are going to cost way more money." It's like when he gets into office and he's like, "Yeah, I'm going to rename shoot, I forget the name, but he's like, I'm going to rename the mountain into Mount McKinley, or I'm going to rename the Gulf of Mexico into the Gulf of the United States or the Gulf of America." It seems harmless to these people, and it seems like they're just getting what they want, which is Trump owning the libs. But what he doesn't really advertise is all of the like violence and the harm that his policies are causing, that he's actually doing to support his oligarch buddies like Elon Musk. And that press conference he had with these tech guys, where he announced like $500 billion get going into AI. What is that,
oh
Project
man,
Stargate or something?
yeah, I was actually reading up on that today. It's weird to me because I guarantee you Trump supporters are not going to kind of connect the dots and be like, okay, he's taking our taxpayer money to do this whole AI just nonsense compared to what people need now. Like I still don't think they're going to connect the dots to be like, oh, he's not doing what he promised he was gonna do on day one. Like they're gonna make some sort of excuse like, oh no, I guess we really needed 500 billion for AI, I guess. But
And
that I'm pretty sure we'll cross that bridge.
yeah,
Um,
and not to like derail from your point, but AI is further disintegrating like the quality of Americans' intelligence by like making it even easier for them to kind of not look up information and not critically think at all.
or to even dilute information.
Yeah.
Like, my wife, she was showing me a 10-second video of a firefighter that was supposedly in LA saving dogs. And like if you kind of have seen a lot of AI, you can kind of look at it like, oh yeah, that's pretty fake. But her friend really thought that was real. Like, oh, they're out there in the woods saving dogs. And if you look at it, you're like, how are you getting fooled by this?
Yeah.
So AI is just making things harder for, you know, people to understand like what's real and what's not. But yeah, like I don't know, man. Like it's just
Yeah.
so many moving like
It's
whack-a-moles.
it's so
It's hard
much.
to like pin one thing down and get people to understand it before we move on to the next one.
That is a strategy of Trump where it's just always been overwhelming the public discourse where people straight can't keep up. And it's kind of the same with like the legal discourse too. Like he's passed so many executive orders. I don't know how many of them are actually legal, but the
Yeah.
illegal ones, they're going to be challenged and it's going to be held up in the courts. And meanwhile, what are people going to do? Like if Trump passes a rule that says, I don't know, agencies can now discriminate against trans people. It's like that's going to be challenged. It's probably going to ultimately be found to be illegal. But in the meantime, it's going to ruin people's lives. And this is like a strategy of Trump with just overwhelming not only the public discourse, but also overwhelming like his kind of opponents in the legal sector with just so many actions that he's taking.
Oh yeah, definitely. And that's one thing that I know I need to do as a progressive content creator is one, keep these things documented. Like that's one thing
Yeah.
that I kind of learned throughout my 2 years of making content. Like normally I would kind of look at a story like, I guess that's not really important, like okay, whatever. But it's important to keep these things kind of documented because, like we said before, like people are going to change their talking points and pretend like they just didn't say the opposite 2 days ago. Like they're literally going to do that. And we need to hold people accountable for like purposely spreading misinformation. So that's one thing. And then two, we need to kind of weed out the crazy, hey, look over here type conversations. Like I'm gonna rename the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America, like or whatever. But he's doing X, Y, and Z behind the scenes. Like we need to keep our eyes on the important changes that he's making and try our best to get that to people to listen to and learn something and get something from it. So when we do make it out of these 4 years, which is going to be pretty rough, then we can make sure that people are a little bit more equipped with not
Right.
voting
Yeah.
for another Donald Trump. You know,
Yeah, and like it might be the most you can do in these 4 years is convince some people that you are a source of good information, and even if like their material conditions haven't really improved that much, and they're still not really able to look up every single thing that Trump does on his own, at least you would have established that like your source of good information and people can trust the content that you're putting out. And I think that's not nothing either. Like that is still something big that progressive content creators can do. It's kind of like set themselves up as being like, I know that it's difficult for people to actually parse through everything that Donald Trump has done, to have like a mental record of all of like the horrible things that he's done and everything that's happened in his first and his second term. But if people like you, me, and other progressive content creators can kind of keep a catalog and have that history kind of downloaded,
yeah.
um, that's a really big thing, even though it might not seem like too much of a success. But just I think like living through it and being voices that are outspoken against that are really important too.
Oh yeah, definitely. And it's important that we need to make sure that we are building alliances with other Democrat voters. When I would like cover a story of Destiny,
Yeah,
like he's pretty liberal. Like he's, made that known plenty of times. Like I'm a liberal, don't really care. But I would rather have people like that as an ally instead of saying, hey, oh, you're a liberal, you're not a progressive. All right, guess what? We're not going to talk. You're my enemy. And now we're kind of further fractioning the Democratic Party. Like, we need to, throughout these 4 years, learn how to make sure that we're aligning as much as we can on a broader scope of what we're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
So when it comes to the next election, we're all not like broken down into like 40 different parties because of one simple policy we don't agree on. And then when we do have a candidate, we can say, okay, this person lines up with 70% of what we kind of all agree on. Let's move on that candidate. You know what I'm saying? Like, the Republican Party. I mean, their tactics were a little bit more like, if you don't vote for us, we're gonna kind of like get you primary. But like, they seen a few things they liked in Trump, either if it's for their own selfish greed or whatever, and they said, "Hey, I don't like Trump, but he's gonna get me a tax cut, so I'll vote for him." You know what I'm saying? Like, we need to
Yeah.
kind of
No, I see what you're
simplify.
saying. I would say that like first off, I would say Destiny's kind of a bad example of someone that we wouldn't want to criticize because Destiny does a lot of drama on his own channel, like on his own side.
Oh,
But
I'm not really tribute to to all that he might. Yeah, I'm
yeah,
sorry.
he was like sending pornographic images of people without their consent. So it's like,
Really?
yeah, he's like about to get canceled.
Oh,
But what I would say is
okay.
like I agree to a point. I think that Democrats are pretty good at like doing the whole vote blue no matter who thing. I just think that rather than focusing on different groups of people that are already motivated to vote but might not wholeheartedly agree on who to vote for, I think that we really need to do a better job of appealing to people that just didn't vote and aren't motivated at all. But yeah, I 100% agree. Like the differences between Republicans and Democrats are bigger than any kind of differences that Democrats would have with each other. It's just kind of like striking that middle ground, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point, and kind of like what I was saying in some of my videos. Like, there's people who are well equipped to go out there to people who haven't voted or make content that's good for new voters or people who are not really informed in politics and get them kind of energized or like more aware of the
Yeah,
importance of voting.
for sure.
That's something I definitely need to work on because I'm more towards the people who know the importance. We just need to kind of sharpen that up a little bit. Like, I'm good at that. I might be a little heavy handed to someone who's not informed and just kind of doesn't care. I might be a little too much for them, but that's why I would need to rely on my other
Hmm.
allies who are good at doing that. Like, hey, I need to make sure you're doing your part and you can know for sure I'm doing mine.
Yeah,
I think we need to do a better job at doing that. And I like reaching out to me and saying, hey, can we collaborate? Because I don't see that on the progressive side.
yeah,
Like, I
that's something
see.
I've wanted to do a lot more of. I think like I've been seeing some other people collaborating too post election. So I think that's something like I'm hopeful that that's something we can see progressives do more in this Trump presidency.
Oh yeah, definitely. Because I would see, one of those moms that's more of a traditional
A
mom.
trad wife?
And yeah, there you go. Yeah, yeah. Like, she was known for doing that, and then like in one of her live streams, she dropped the N word like a whole bunch of
Oh
times.
yeah,
And
yeah. I think I
yeah,
remember that.
yeah, and people were giving her stuff, so she did another live, and she dropped more N bombs. And then the next thing you know,
Oh,
she's
and let
on
me
Fox
guess, she
News.
wasn't black.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. She definitely wasn't black by far. And the next thing you know, she's on Fox News. I'm like,
Yeah, that's
that's
crazy.
crazy.
The
But like,
Republican media pipeline works so fast.
yeah, and it's amazing. Like, they turn, and I'm surprised that this lady doesn't have a podcast at this point, and probably has 500,000 followers, subscribers at this point. Like you said, like, their pipeline is so efficient, it is ridiculous. You know what I'm saying? Like, you get these people who are controversial, I guess probably for Democrats, like in a good way, but like get them out there, and if they're good speakers, like yeah, like work with them or do something, but like, they'll turn anybody into a celebrity for the right. What's his name? The New
Rittenhouse.
York who, yeah, Rittenhouse, Jordan,
Oh yeah, Neely,
uh
Neely.
yeah, on Fox News, going to all these football games with Trump and Vance. They're turning these people who I think should just be in prison, they're turning them into celebrities, and next thing you know, they're
It's
going to have a
crazy.
podcast. And it's just crazy how quickly they foster that kind of energy.
No, yeah. And one thing that like talking about kind of like building up a more progressive media sphere. One thing that I've been wanting to do also is have like less directly political content too. What kind of show could we do together that would kind of be like a rotating weekly, monthly thing with like multiple people? And I think a really fun thing to do would be like doing some kind of gaming. So either like an online board game or video games, or just like watching like a book club or like an anime club where we watch like animes and then have like
Hey,
funny
yes,
political
sir.
takes about it. Like kind of some less um, hardcore political stuff would be a really good on ramp for people kind of interested in politics, but not like super hardcore for politics, if
Yeah.
you know what I mean.
Oh yeah, definitely. I actually, because a few months ago I made YouTube my full time job. So with the extra time I have, I thought about that because I do digital art. So I thought about, well, if I did like a live stream of me drawing with maybe a political video playing or whatnot, or just talking about politics or gaming. I play League of Legends. I mean, I don't know if that's a good thing because it's pretty toxic, but I play League of Legends. So I thought about maybe streaming that while talking politics. Like you said, like trying to figure out how to get your message to people who normally wouldn't click on your videos.
Yeah.
I know it sounds a little like covert, like you're trying to, like, I would say it's for a good reason.
And also,
Like
if you
I'm
just
trying to,
enjoy doing it, people are going to want to watch it, and like your enjoyment would
yeah.
be genuine.
Exactly, and I have some information. We have some information that is really vital for people to learn and understand and get a grasp, because it could literally prevent families from being broken or save people's lives. So I think we have a responsibility to do whatever we need to get that information to as many people as possible.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it would be a good spot to end it here. I don't want to keep you too long. This was a really fun conversation. I had a great time talking with you, and yeah, hopefully, like let's keep adding more people to this idea that we're developing. Check out the Soy Pill. He's a guy that I've been talking with, and he's been doing a lot of like good progressive stuff. He recently made YouTubing his full time job too, I believe. So check out his stuff, and maybe you can DM
Okay.
him and have a conversation with him.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like you say, it's important that we do what we need to do as content creators, and kind of just hope for the best from there. So, but once again, I definitely appreciate you asking me to jump on to have this conversation, even though I might be a little emotional at times.
Nah,
But
dude,
I
you're
definitely do
fine.
appreciate that.
Yeah, and honestly, it's like we're in a dark time, so I can totally understand people being emotional. It's so fucking frustrating, like seeing the news at this point in time. So it's like it's
Yeah.
kind of brightens my spirits a little bit to be talking with someone and being like, "Hey, let's watch anime together. Can we just like relax and do that?" Thanks for jumping on.
Yes, sir. Talk
All
to you
right,
soon.
yeah, keep in touch.